Hey everybody, welcome back. It is a double feature weekend. Today we're going to be talking about Russell, how he trained and became Idaho's Strongman champion despite not having reliable implement access as well as a slightly dodgy weekly schedule. But before we dive into Russell's gold standard performance, make sure to find me over on Instagram as Coach Mark Estrebio. Also, I offer one-to-one coaching. It's what I do full-time, and the odds are very good. I'd love to work with you. Without being said, let's get into it. Naturally, to train for a show, you have to know what's going on at it, and here's what Russell was staring down the barrel of. First event was going to be a circus dumbbell for max reps at 185 pounds, and then it was a max axle deadlift and Wessel's rule. So 3 attempts total, and they had fixed weight jumps. And that's something that I honestly really like in a show that does have a max deadlift. When you have pre-selected weight jumps, it actually makes the preparation process a lot easier because you can kind of go, all right, realistically, I know I can hit X weight for my second attempt, and then that gives you the ability to YOLO your third attempt or just monkey with it depending on, where you and your coach are at. But regardless, having pre-selected weights for your attempts, I think is a really nice bonus for a lot of these shows to do when it comes to max weight events, rather than people taking, 5-10 pound jumps towards the end. Does make the show run a lot longer too, so just my opinion on that. Then it was a wagon wheel squat 4 reps, and the idea was, you go to about parallel wagon wheels hitting the boxes. Then it was a Fingal's finger to farmers to sandbag to keg medley carry series. So you would flip the finger and then you have those 3 implements where you carry them each. And then a 4-stone series at 275, 300, 365, and 400. Now once we understood what the show was, we had to look at the situation itself. Russell is an open class strongman, and despite being over 300, he is incredibly agile and mobile. He can actually do a toe touch split jump. Also, incredibly strong presser, having done 3 plates, 4 reps on the strict standing press. So the circus dumbbell was one of those events where certainly I was furrowing my brows a little bit, but I wasn't too concerned because good pressers tend to be good pressers across multiple implements with just a little bit of skill and practice, and recognizing how naturally explosive and agile Russell is, that's a good tell that he's got really enhanced bodily awareness, so he'd be able to pick up the skill of the circus dumbbell very quickly, thus we could maximize his strength. Now, one thing that I did feel needed a bit more attention to be competitive was his deadlift going into this competition. Prior to this show, Russell's best deadlift was 615 pounds on a mammoth bar. And again, overall, a very impressive package, but the axle deadlift, being what it is, certainly was one that we wanted to pay a lot of attention to. Also, as a quick side note, we had originally planned for him to compete in the Open Pro class, but this wound up getting merged with the Super Heavies, leading into the competition itself. Once we knew what we were working with and what we were working towards, we wanted to make sure that the split made sense for Russell. And during this time, his day-to-day life was really busy, and it also put us in a situation where he neither had reliable access to the implements for the show, aside from the circus dumbbell, nor did he have a consistently guaranteed weekly schedule, but we did know that we could get 3 days a week in consistently, so I opted to polish off the old 1-1-2 split, which is a 1 lower emphasis day, a 1 upper emphasis day, and then 2 full body days. And what this allowed us to do was put the most energy into his skill development on that circus dumbbell, which I felt was the most important thing. And then from there, we could also build general strength and stability to help with the moving and loading events, recognizing that he did not have implement access. So how did it end? It ended with Russell taking home gold, as I said in the beginning. On the circus dumbbell, he got 4 repetitions, which got him the event win. On the axle deadlift, he tied for first place with a 645-pound axle pull. And remember, prior to this show, his best deadlift was 615 on the mammoth bar. So we not only added 30 pounds to his competition PR, but we did it the hard way on a substantially more difficult variation. Then it was the wagon wheel squat where Russell managed 6 reps. Side note, he forgot to pull up his knee sleeves and actually use them during the event, so we're going to pretend he might have been good for a couple more reps, but either way, good stuff there. Now, the carry medley was our most challenging event, just not having had access to the implements to train them consistently. Additionally, he nearly lost a callus on the farmer's walk, which if you've ever torn a callus, it's a great way to end the day, so we took 4th place in that one. And then last but not least was the stone load series where he tied for 1st place. Now, worth mentioning, on the circus dumbbell, he actually was the only person in his field to get any reps. The rest of the field had zeroed it, which, as you could imagine, put him in a very strong position for the rest of the event series, and he finished the day with a 2-point lead. But now that we've talked a bit about how it all ended, let's talk about that middle part. How exactly did we train for this show aside from just the split? For the circus dumbbell, Russell had access to a 10-inch dumbbell that he actually borrowed from a teammate who, funnily enough, actually got it from me originally, so it's just sort of a traveling circus dumbbell. But luckily, because of his high level of static strength, we just needed skill practice. So we had him training on it 2 times a week. One day would be slightly heavier, where he would work up to a challenging set of 2 to 5 for a top set, and then do some back off triples, doubles, or singles to hone in technique. We often mixed in something such as a paused dip here. Because the circus dumbbell's dip drive, it's much more shallow than other implements in my experience. And then his other session of the week, we'd usually do something like doing 2 cleans and then into 1 press, just skill development work, getting him used to that odd, uncomfortable rack position as well as the different clean mechanics. Ultimately, because he doesn't use a lot of leg drive on any of his presses, the dip drive mechanics weren't too complicated for him to pick up. Aside from that, accessories were incredibly simple. We just focused on increasing his upper back and tricep strength, so we saw floor presses, rows, and shrugs. Also, when training the circus dumbbell for the competition, we only trained his competition arm with the circus dumbbell. His offhand, we trained with one-arm dumbbell presses, landmine presses, things of that nature. In the off season is when I'd rather see an athlete focus on training their offhand with the circus dumbbell, but for competition prep season, we want to maximize the ability of the athlete to express their strength on that specific implement on the appropriate arm. Now, as far as Russell's deadlift training went, honestly, this was extremely basic. We just used a modified block progression. We did 3 weeks of triples with some back off fours, took a deload, 3 weeks of doubles with back off triples, took a deload, then 3 weeks of heavy singles with back off doubles, and then we did barely anything 2 weeks out from the competition. And in training, Russell's heaviest deadlift was 600 pounds, which I figured was a good, safe second attempt for him based off of how it moved, and we knew what the weight jumps were, and obviously it panned out. Now, in terms of the accessory movements, we opted for barbell rows, shrugs, as well as loaded marches for core stability. The squat, much like the deadlift, was trained using a very basic progression. In this case, we opted for sets of 5 to 8. Kind of figured that's where the winning rep count would be on something like this. If you look at a lot of the heavier weight classes, when it has an event 4 reps, usually the winning rep count is somewhere between 4 to 8. You'll see it sometimes go into double digits, but again, this is just based off observations of local and regional level shows, just gathering data from places like Iron Podium. It's just a good kind of way of looking at it. And what we did here was just, we undulated from week to week. Sometimes we'd work a little heavier, sometimes we'd do sets across. We do ramping sets. We might hit a top set and do a couple back offs. We just played around with it. We actually did not go any heavier than 455 in training, specifically to maximize recoverability so that we could put more energy into Russell's deadlift. Now, as far as the moving medley as well as the stone loading, again, with lacking implement access, our big priorities were just improving hinge mechanics for the stone load, as well as really building up his upper back, which is something that I'll always kind of talk about on this channel, as well as on the Instagram especially, is just upper back. Having that strong means you're not going to have any energy leaks, and it's going to have transference to so many different things within your event work. So we used loaded marches not only to improve his core strength, but also to improve his moving ability just a little bit. If you think about something like a farmer's walk, if you're doing loaded marches, you will have some transference. We did trap bar carries as we could, and then barbell rows. Very basic stuff, building overall undeniable strength. Now, as far as what a week of training did look like, you'll see that on screen right now. So day 1, that was our heavier circus dumbbell day. And then we'd follow up with some floor presses, dumbbell rows, a seated unsupported overhead press. So that's essentially just an overhead press seated on a bench without back support. So Z press, but on a bench. Then a bunch of face pulls. Day 2, we would do some SSB pause squats just to warm up the knees and the hips before moving into our axle deadlift, then our heavy squats. Then we'd finish the day off with some shrugs and sit-ups. Day 3 was our second lighter day that we'd work with the circus dumbbell. We'd also do an offhand one-arm press. We'd work in some loaded carries as we were able, and then barbell rows. So that was our full body day. Now, day 4 was the day that got skipped here and there just due to the weekly schedules. So we were really prioritizing days 1 through 3. But in day 4, when it did happen, you saw something such as a Zercher march. Now, the reason for a Zercher style hold is if you think about moving a sandbag and moving a keg, it is a front loaded carry. So it made sense to me to be a front loaded march in place, but not a rack position one, because we wanted to maximize overload to the midline and not have the front rack position be our limiter there. Then we'd do something like a 30-degree incline press as well as RDLs to help improve hinge and posterior chain mechanics and strength. Again, very basic stuff here, but if you look at the nature of the various movements the competition itself, you can see how these all line out, and all the little bits and parts added up to be greater than the sum of the individuals added up, right? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's the smart phrase I was trying to find. Now, as I'd alluded to earlier, Russell was very busy at this time, just had a lot going on in terms of his day-to-day in his work. Now, there is one bit, though, that I honestly found kind of funny, and I'm putting it up here with his permission. What happened was he had received an offer to be a personal trainer, and he had been wanting to reach out to me for a while because I guess he was very concerned that I wouldn't want to work with him being a coach. And the reason I share this is I'm sure for a lot of you watching this, you're probably coaches yourselves, and you know that you're coaching other coaches. It's kind of the joke, right? Every coach needs a coach. So I just had to share this because I thought it was really funny, and it shows kind of what a good-spirited guy Russell is. And also, if you do live out in Nampa, Idaho, if you're looking for a strength and wellness coach, you want to add muscle, lose a little fat, or add a lot of weight onto the bar, highly recommend Russell. He's a really smart guy. Ultimately, the biggest lesson here is even if you do not have implement access in your schedule, is not agreeing and it's not the most serviceable for what you're doing, do not let perfect be the enemy of progress. And close enough is more than good enough when you train with intensity and focus. So let's all give Russell another big congratulations. And for those of you out there who don't have access to all the toys, hopefully you got something useful out of this. Also, make sure to check out my program, Strongman Going Commando. It is a commercial gym strongman program, and I'll include a link to that video down in the description box below. Anyways, folks, hope you're having a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.